Hey guys, and welcome back to the Wrestling Hideout Podcast. We are back finally with I don't even know, episode 9. And what is our topic for this week?
Our topic this week is Impact Wrestling.
Now, I know for a fact we have a lot of Impact Wrestling followers on the channel, which surprises me to be honest. Um, but I guess we did pump out a bunch of content from their show, so it only seems fitting we start with Impact, considering big news that upon January at their Hard to Kill event, they are rebranding back to TNA Wrestling. How do we feel about this?
Well, it was never really known as Impact Wrestling in the United Kingdom, and most of the world it carried on being advertised as TNA. So what they're doing is a really clever thing because they are rebranding back to their original name, which got them all of the hype and got them all of the fans and all of the wrestlers that have been TNA originals from that era have gone on to be really, really good. So they are basically just resetting. They're doing a reset, if you follow me.
Yeah, I think when you think about the names TNA Wrestling and Impact Wrestling, they almost feel like two different companies. Even though obviously it's the same company that just went through a soft relaunch to get rid of the TNA branding, there's a big difference in like the quality, but also the wrestlers and that sort of thing. Um, Like when I think of Impact, I think of people like AJ Styles, Chris Sabin, Team Canada, America's Most Wanted, Kurt Angle. And then when I think about Impact, even though a lot of those people were still there for it, I'm more swayed towards people like Austin Aries and like Johnny Nitro, whatever his name is at this moment in time. They're really like the dip in quality where they were basically pulling in what, a handful of viewers per week and somehow surviving.
There was a drastic change in the quality in terms of the production value. As a fan, I did notice. I think it was the whole Global Force Wrestling debacle is when a lot of the fans fell off,
So,
and because of that, I believe they lost their TV deal, which was with Axis TV, was it at the time?
I
And
think so.
they was it okay? Because I know they lost one TV deal because Vince Russo sent the wrong email,
That was with
and
Spike, wasn't it?
that was so. I know we're jumping around a lot. I know the problem started in 2014 because Spike were actually paying the salaries of all the big names, and that when they lost Spike, and I believe they had to go to Pop TV, that's when it started to go downhill a lot. And in my head, that's when Impact kind of started when they lost Spike.
So do you remember what TV network came before Pop TV?
The fishing channel or something like that.
Yep, Destination America.
Yeah, they were on the channel. I remember that. It's like it went from fly fishing with Uncle Rogers to TNA Impact.
Yep.
It's like what?
And now they are back on Access TV, which only started in 2009. So they haven't been back on Access TV for that long. At one point, they were showing their
Well,
shows on Twitch.
Access is actually owned by the company that own Impact.
Yeah, because they also show New Japan Pro Wrestling immediately afterwards, which I think is why another factor in why New Japan have such a good relationship with Impact now is because Impact can lead into those NJP, those New Japan shows and get more eyes on that product. But this whole TV deal debacle actually isn't quite as topic as you think, because I was going to say to you we should start with a few of the issues that TNA have had since becoming Impact. Obviously, Global Force was something where they put stickers over the title belts because they didn't have enough money to buy new ones. You had them taping over the Global Force tapes for Impact Wrestling because they didn't have enough tapes to record their own TV show. But do you
Okay.
remember The year where they couldn't afford to run any summer shows during the Bound for Glory era.
So
No?
you mentioned this to me the other day when we were doing some research
Yes.
to this. So I really dropped off. So I dropped off. I dropped off Impact completely around about. It was when Matt Hardy jumped back to WWE. So what was that? 2017.
Roughly, yeah.
So 2017. Yeah, so I missed this, and I don't really know much about it. So why don't you explain?
So, Impact, the biggest event of the year is Bound for Glory. The latest one has just been where they announced their rebrand TNA. And if you haven't seen that show, it might be one of the best wrestling shows I've seen this year. Every match was amazing. But for their biggest show of the year for this year, they did something called the Bound for Glory tournament or something like this. And the idea was it was much like New Japan's G1, where you'd have blocks of wrestlers and they'd all wrestle each other. And depending on the results, they'd
Yep,
get
I
points.
remember Bounce. I remember the.
Yep.
Yep.
Because they couldn't afford to run any shows, they picked matches featuring all these wrestlers from the last 2 years, and they re-showed those matches pretending they were new. And it was a big old disjointed mess because every episode you'd have one wrestler looking different to how he looked like the previous week. Like one week his hair would be long, then it'd be short, then it'd be long again. The audience was completely different constantly, and a lot of the matches you remember because they used all the big stars like Jeff Hardy, Eddie Edwards, like Abyss, all this stuff. Rob Van Dam, I think, was in it. So it's all the big names. So they're matches
And
you
they
remember
didn't
seeing these guys in.
advertise, and they didn't advertise that they were doing this like a Bound for Glory best matches thing.
No, they just made it sound like it
Like
was new matches, and it quite clearly wasn't. It was
you'd be
pretty
like, hang
brutal.
on a minute, he hasn't wrestled for Impact for 5 years. What's going on here?
Yeah, it was a rough time. So yeah, Impact haven't
And
exactly
what?
been the best.
Oh, I mean, people you've got to remember they've actually been Impact for longer than they were TNA.
hmm When you think about TNA, there's a
So
lot of weird facts. Like Kurt Angle's Impact career is longer than his WWE's.
he himself actually said that his best matches of his entire career, in his view, were in TNA Impact, and he said he was sad about this because a lot of his stuff is not known by the average the average wrestling fan, as he means like the majority of wrestling fans watch WWE. So some people think he retired in 2006 and came back in 2020
Yep.
because they haven't seen his stuff. I mean, I think Angle's best feuds were in Impact.
Oh, 100.
His his Samoa Joe thing. Do you remember when they they ran out of ideas for a few weeks and just gave him all the belts,
Yep.
like every
Yes, I
single
do.
championship? As well, Sting's career in Impact is actually some of his best stuff, in my opinion.
No, I agree.
No, the Joker Sting is not as popular with most people as it is with me. Um,
Say what you want about it. The Joker
I,
Sting is very iconic.
It is, and it's very Heath Ledger, if
Yeah.
I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
Um, I think, like, creatively, the problems really did start, and you know where I'm going with this. The problems really did start when they brought in a certain person with a mustache.
Yeah, I can't argue with that, sadly.
And that's when it became Impact, wasn't it? Because they brought it in, they brought Hogan and Bischoff in, and Bischoff, Eric Bischoff, you're a fucking liar, yeah? You say you didn't have any creative control. It's bollocks. Have you heard him on his podcast? He's gone, oh, I went in there and I was just Hogan's manager. I didn't do anything. I didn't know. Of course he did. It's Eric Bischoff.
Yeah, for sure.
It was his decision, apparently, to get rid of the six-sided ring. It was down to him. It was his idea to get rid of it.
So, for a fun little fact for
Um,
you, it actually became Impact Wrestling after Hogan had left.
oh,
I'm just looking at a timeline.
okay.
I'm
My
just looking at a
mistake.
timeline here. So Hogan actually left in 2013. It became Impact in 2017 when Anthem took over it, and then Anthem did not put it onto their TV channels for another 2 years. Another 4 years, sorry, which is crazy.
Hang on a minute. I know it might sound like um because it was called TNA Impact.
Yes.
Yes, it was called TNA Impact
Yeah.
so it was rebranded to TNA Impact when Hogan was there, and then they dropped the TNA later on. So we're kind of both right.
Yeah, it feels like Anthem tried to drop the TNA to rebrand it after the mess that Hogan and stuff made. But I consider that Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff, like Mick Foley, not crapping on Mick Foley because we love Mick Foley here, but when they really brought in the legends and like Kevin Nash was in the main events or not, even though that was TNA, to me that feels like Impact Wrestling because it was such a diversion from what TNA was. And the fact that Anthem didn't put the show on their own channels for 4 years kind of seems pretty telling about how little faith they had in this investment.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, it's still around the 2015-16 mark. This is the Billy Corgan debacle. Like Destination America, they were on Destination America. He said, "I've just been doing looking at some facts here. They actually gained 42 million viewers in the first quarter of 2015 when they moved Impact over." I was reading something the other day that said Impact had a solid group of around 2 million fans that would follow them constantly, and they lost that after the Billy Corgan debacle.
Yeah, I mean, you had the whole Hogan Bischoff era, you had Dixie then overran from the Hogan and Bischoff era. Then you had Dixie and Corgan, and the company's just been behind the scenes. The company's been a mess for a very, very long time.
To be honest with you, I don't think, to step back to what I said earlier, even when Hogan was around, there were still good things. I think Immortal and
Yes,
Fortune wasn't that bad,
Fortune was a
really.
really,
Although
really good one.
they were trying to copy obvious WCW WWE storylines. But you still had people like AJ Styles cracking it
Yeah,
out week in, week out. I actually am a fan of the Aces and Eights storyline. I'm a fan of what it should and could have been, if that makes sense. Not what it turned out to be. But it's quite iconic, the Aces and Eight, and that gave us Bully Ray, who, in my opinion, is one of the best wrestling characters of his generation. I really
yeah.
do like it. I'm a big fan of him.
No, I agree. I think Billy
Um,
Ray was amazing. In fact, to be honest, I think
uh,
Team 3
Bully
did.
Ray, what was it, his 9-inch calves or something
Yeah,
stupid like that.
I honestly think
I'm
Team
going to
3
tell you
did.
right now, in my opinion, the biggest thing that destroyed TNA. Okay,
Okay.
the two biggest things that destroyed TNA. Their decision to go on the road
Hmm.
was one big mistake,
Yep.
and their decision to leave Universal Studios was a big deal as well.
I think there's also one other factor in play here. When they tried to
What's
reignite the
that?
Monday Night Wars,
Oh God!
didn't their
Do you know
viewership
what though?
just.
Looking at that, because I've looked at the figures of that, yeah, AEW would murder to get the numbers Impact were getting. I know we're
Yep.
in a different era now in terms of TV numbers, yeah, but that I don't believe is a great excuse, because I think you could probably still pull that many numbers in if you wanted to. Impact still were pulling in over 1 million.
Which is a big number.
You know, you
Like,
know,
a lot of times WWE would be killing to get that number.
yeah. Right, so talking about Impact, talking about the Impact rebranding,
Yep.
and you've been to an Impact Wrestling show. I haven't.
I have indeed. I'm going to another
What
one
do
as
you
well.
think? Thanks for that.
It's not
Um,
really Impact though. It's Impact do this yearly show where they pretend the wrestlers pretend to all be like old 80s wrestlers. So like
that
they,
sounds awesome.
yeah, it's called the IPWA or something. Um, but they basically just pretend to be like lumberjack, and he'll come out in like Canadian lumberjack garb and whatnot. Or you have like the mean biker, and it's just like it's like a comedy wrestling show. and it looks really, really good. So I figured, why not go to it? We'll have some content from that show on this channel for sure.
Oh, and then I'll film some content of me sitting here looking at a wall and crying because I can't go to wrestling shows.
Well, Tony Khan's big announcement this week
Um,
was
uh,
the all-in tickets are going on sale at the end of the week. So, oh no, sorry, you can sign up
buy
for the pre-sale at the end of the week.
buy 3 get 10 free.
You know what? The problem is they won't struggle to sell it in the UK, but that doesn't help them in the
Yeah,
States.
well, on that subject, there's still some controversy on how many tickets they actually sold and how many they distributed.
I know. Did Did you see Will
Wasn't
Ospreay
it Will
got?
Ospreay got a tattoo of
Yep,
the figure that Tony Khan announced, and then he found out it isn't actually right?
yep, and now he's worked in Impact for the last month instead of AEW.
Oh, Impact, didn't they just say that they're going to come back to the UK next year?
But they haven't confirmed it, but there are rumors because they basically did 4 sold-out shows in the north. So I guarantee you we'll get a couple of London shows, and if we do, we will 100% be getting tickets.
I was looking at the highlights from those the Coventry shows and that, and they had a good 1,500 people in the building, I believe, which is good for Impact. I mean, their highest ever attended event, I believe, was only 7-8 thousand.
Well,
That
to
was back in its real heyday.
put it into context for you, the show I went to, Emergence, was held in the Windsor College or something. There's about 300 people there, and it was a sold-out show. Impact have announced that they're running
I
bigger
would
venues now.
rather, I would rather go. I would rather, as a company, sell out 300
Yep,
every week and every show of the year than what's happening with AEW, where
for sure.
they were selling arenas of 10 to 15,000 before a certain Phil Brooks left, and now they can't fill up a barnyard.
Yeah,
It's sad looking at AEW. It's sad looking at sorry, Adam Copeland's debut, because the one camera angle, there's not a single person to one side of him. I'm sure you've seen that one.
I have indeed.
But
So,
I was gonna. Sorry, I was trying to say something about TNA. And I've completely lost the thread of thoughts because people are in the UK. It's bonfire night soon, isn't it? So people are already
yeah.
practicing the fireworks.
Well, to finish off my
Oh,
point
I just.
quick, the event I went to was about 300 people, sold out. Their event in January, when they have confirmed they are upping their venues and trying to get more established places, is the Palm Spring Resort in Las Vegas, and it's a 2,100 seat venue.
My question to you: what's happened in TNA the last year? What has happened? Because I don't just see a difference in attendance. I see a difference in quality of matches. I see a difference in quality of commentary. They seem to be like, I was reading the other day that the morale the last couple of months has been insanely high. What do you think actually changed? Because something changed behind the scenes. Because they've been running, Scott D'Amore's been running it for years.
Yep.
Anthem have been running it for years. What's changed?
So, let's do a little history thing here. Following Anthem taking over the company, they brought
Yeah.
in Jeff Jarrett. This is in 2007, sorry, 2017. They brought in Jeff Jarrett to run the
Yeah.
promotion, and he brought in a bunch of people. So he brought in Dutch Mantel, Bruce Pritchard, and Scott D'Amore, and this is where D'Amore started getting his grip back onto Impact, and D'Amore was in charge of creative. And then a few months
Okay.
later, something seemed to have happened, and Scott D'Amore and Don Callis, who people will probably more know at the moment from AEW, were established as Impact Wrestling's executive vice presidents. And this is where
Hmm.
things really start to get a bit better. Like they brought in Pentagon Jr. and Ray Phoenix from AEW. You had
Okay.
Sammy Callahan and his crew, OVE. They came in. You had a bunch of like more established stars. Like they had Johnny Nitro come in, that sort of thing. And then I believe it was 2001. No, sorry, 2021. Don Callis left to go to AEW. which is around the time that AEW and Impact were doing their little co-brand thing, where you had Kenny Omega holding the belt. And I think
Yes,
that,
I remember that.
yeah,
You had Omega belt, you had Christian holding the belt.
yeah, and I think that kind of helped Impact. But what I think has really helped them now is that they've pushed away from needing like AEW establishment, and they really just focus solely on the wrestlers within TNA and made them the focal point. So, for
I
example,
actually thought TNA were going to get swallowed by AEW at one point. I thought they were going to be the provider. Just on that note, you mentioned something there. Sorry to interrupt you.
no,
I'm
no,
just going to read you something, okay? John Hengen,
yep,
John Morrison, Johnny Blaze, Johnny Calabano, Johnny Down Under, Johnny Elite, Johnny Fusion, Johnny Hardy, Johnny Impact, Johnny Mundo, Johnny Nitro, Johnny Oinks, Johnny Spade, Johnny Superstar, Johnny TV, and more, his Wikipedia page says. Sorry.
so like, I mean, the gimmick's good, changing your name every show, but
Yeah,
god damn,
I mean, isn't it? It's all probably down to the fact that WWE own Johnny Morrison, don't they?
yeah.
And that's where it started. Anyway, sorry, back on subject.
So D'Amore then became the sole executive, and he really focused on the like homegrown Impact fans, or not fans, wrestlers. So, for example, you went from having like Kenny Omega and Christian having the title to Josh Alexander, who anyone that doesn't really watch Impact or follow like indie wrestling won't know who he is. But he's like a modern day Kurt Angle. He's really, really good.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they built it from the ground up. They made him a tag team champ, and then they made him the X Division champion, and then they made him the longest reigning Impact champion. You had the current world title holder is Alex Shelley, who's an Impact original basically. Like Chris Sabin is the X Division champion, so he is an Impact original. He's been there since the start.
Motor City Machine Guns, isn't it?
Yep, they've been all over the shows.
You've just
They've
you've just said
really,
both of them there, haven't you?
yeah. So that was Shelley and Sabin, but they've stopped focusing on the ex WWE and like major stars, and they really focused back on what made TNA special to begin with. The only one that they've really focused on currently is Trinity or Naomi from WWE. But I I think when you do have a women's division in a company that small, sometimes you do need that little WWE rub to really boost it. But they've got a bunch of ex WWE
Yeah,
wrestlers.
I remember TNA. Yeah, it did get swamped by the big boys. You had Nash, you had Booker T, you had Razor Ramon, you had Angle, you had Christian, you had
Yes, you had the Hardys as well. You had
Dudley's. Well, the Team 3D.
Team 3D. Like,
Although in my head, Team 3D and the Dudley Boys, it may be the same two people, but they're two different teams.
I agree. I think the Dudleys were much better in Impact. I think if you take away the ladder matches with Edge and Christian and the Hardys, I think Team 3D's run is way better than the Dudley Boys' run.
Do you remember the whole thing they had where, they got really fat? And then there was this whole thing where they wouldn't let them wrestle unless they were under a certain weight. Do you remember that gimmick?
Yes,
They
I.
kept bringing the scales out. It was Devon that struggled most, wasn't it?
Devon's always been, I say always. Devon used to be
That
very, very
that was
slim.
it because they had a whole feud with the X Division and they wouldn't let them wrestle the X Division wrestlers because they were too
Yes,
fat.
yes, I do
I remember
remember.
that. Yeah.
And the company quite clearly tried to kill the X Division without saying it.
Oh yeah, that was also a Bischoff thing. He hated the X Division, didn't he?
Hmm.
Absolutely hated it.
But now when you
But
look
you can
at
see that in his WCW.
Yeah, but now when you look at TNA now, the X Division's a big focal point. They've got a bunch of ex WWE wrestlers. So they just had Heath Slater. He's just left the company. They had him. They've got Rhino. They've got the guy that used
He's
to be
been around
Fang.
for years.
Yeah, he's like 45 or something now. They've got Fandango. They have Brian
He was meant to
Myers.
be WWE champion.
Yeah, after beating
He
Jericho
was
at
actually,
WrestleMania.
and that comes from Jericho, wasn't it?
Yeah, because Jericho put him over.
Yeah, Tommy Dreamer isn't Tommy Dreamer? Doesn't he hold one of the championships in
He holds the
Impact at the moment?
Digital Media Championship. So,
That
like,
sounds like a very Heath Slater idea. No, not Heath Slater. Matt. What's his name? Matt. Oh,
Matt Cardona,
the guy. Yeah, that's a Matt Cardona idea from WWE, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure he did hold the championship when he joined the company for a little bit.
Because
And
he
like
used to be the Zack
Zack
Slater,
Ryder.
wasn't it? Zack Ryder. Yeah, he did hold it. Yes.
But
Yeah,
they've
he had that whole thing, didn't he?
yeah. So they've got all these ex WWE stars, but they're not in the main events, or if they are in the main event, they're putting over the Impact people. So like Alex Shelley just beat Brian Myers to retain the Impact title, that sort of thing. So they've taken all this focus away from using ex WWE stars and just really focus on these like homegrown talents. And I think that's what's really made the difference because a lot of the ex WWE stars you can bring in realistically are either old or they were never really high up the card on WWE, if that makes sense. So like
No,
you can bring
I
in
know what you're
a
saying.
I don't know, you could bring in a who's just left, Riddick Moss. You could bring him in, but just because he's an ex WWE wrestler doesn't mean he's better than the homegrown talent they've got. So I think that works. I think the other thing that works is the audience doesn't get too burnt out on the wrestling. So Impact's schedule is really clever because they'll run like 2 shows back to back. And on the second show, they'll film like 3 TV shows at the same time. And then when this is
Okay.
aired, it's really clever because you might have, let's say, week 1, you have Alex Shelley versus, I don't know, Abyss, just as an example. Week 2, you might have Alex Shelley cut a promo because he's the champion, but he won't wrestle. Week 3, you might have Alex Shelley teaming up with someone to take on Abyss and someone else. And then week 4, you might have Abyss cutting a promo on Alex Shelley, and then it's the pay per view. There's not this constant every week you have to see the same people wrestling, so you can keep the matches a bit fresher. And that's what I find makes it a lot more interesting to watch because as much as I love Seth Rollins, I don't need to see him wrestle every week against the same 5 or 6 people.
Well, it's not even Seth Rollins. Didn't
Yeah,
Natalia challenge for the championship like every week for like 6 months?
yeah, exactly. And that's not something you get in Impact. They're really good at if person A and person
Mixing
B
it
are
up.
yeah, if person A and person B are having a feud. They're really good at having these guys like have a promo in the ring, but then having them wrestle separate people to like keep the wrestlers ready and warm for their big match in 3 weeks' time, or whatever. Like I think what they do is really, really clever. Really, really clever.
Is my I is Sammy Callahan still signed with them?
He's just left.
I really liked his character. I really
Yeah.
liked him. He was one of the guys that was back in their dark days. When I mean by dark days, I mean when they were falling apart.
Yep.
I used to find it an interesting character. He was the one that lost the title to Tessa Blanchard, wasn't he?
I believe so. Which is a whole other
Tessa
issue.
Blanchard, yeah, I mean, attractive woman, slightly weird.
Racist as well.
Well, yes, that was never proven. It was never proven, but
No, never proven, but you had
the
about 7 people speak out about her, which
well, yeah, she also buggered off to Mexico with her then boyfriend and refused to come back.
yeah, and
So they
refused
took the title off her, didn't they? They sacked her
she
basically.
refused to even cut like some video promos to air when they were like, okay, you don't have to come and wrestle. Just like record some promos on your phone and send to us so we can air them. And she refused to do that as well.
She was their highest paid wrestler at the time, I believe, as well. For some reason, I don't know how she managed to get into that position.
The problem is
Oh, it's
she's
probably
really good.
nepotism because of her father.
Yeah, I mean the problem is
Right?
she's a really, really good wrestler. But there's
The
just
thing is, though, it wasn't believable. It wasn't believable her beating Brian Cage. It just wasn't believable. Do you remember that?
yeah, no, and like that's not a sexist thing. It's just there is a certain amount of wrestling like
No, not
disbelief you have
sexist
to.
at all. Brian Cage is like built like the mountain from Game of Thrones. I
Yeah,
mean,
like we are fat guys. Brian Cage could pick us both up and throw us across the room. It just is what it is.
I love how you just say we are fat guys.
I mean, you say it. You call yourself fat like every episode, so I'm just getting involved. It's
Yeah, I'm
either
going to do some pop quiz for you now. I'm going to do
okay.
a TNA pop quiz on you.
Oh, hit me.
Okay. So this is TNA and Impact. This is an NWA TNA, okay?
Okay.
First champion.
For TNA. Well, sorry, for Impact.
Yeah. No,
Oh,
for TNA. First champion, because remember they don't count the NWA thing
yep.
as their lineage.
It's either Christian or Kurt Angle. I want to say Kurt Angle.
It is Kurt Angle because
Legit.
Christian Cage was the last NWA champion for them.
That's it. Yes. Okay.
Most title runs. How many?
Ooh. I'm gonna say Sting with 5.
Kurt Angle with 6.
Shit. That was literally my second
Okay.
guess. Kurt Angle with 6. Damn it.
Okay, let me think. Lightest ever world champion.
Lightest. Chris Sabin.
That's a Blanchard, mate.
Oh fuck. I wiped it from my memory.
Okay, most ridiculous world champion apart from Tessa Blanchard.
Most ridiculous.
Yeah. In terms of his character at the time
His
and who
character.
he
Okay.
was facing.
Oh man, I don't know. The first one that came to mind was Chris Sabin, but not because he's a bad wrestler, but because of all the backstage bullshit about it. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe Magnus.
No, you're close. You're close. Okay. So this isn't a smash. This isn't a diss on the wrestler. It's the
Yep.
most ridiculous world championship run. I'm saying Eric Young in 2014
Oh,
with his clear Daniel Bryan ripoff, and he
yes.
beat Magnus.
Was it Super Eric? Was that the superhero gimmick?
Who do you think my favorite ever Impact wrestler is?
I mean, I want to say Kurt
TNA
Angle,
Impact wrestler is.
but I don't know. It could be Christian.
He doesn't count because he's kind of like.
Oh, I don't know. Then you're gonna have to intrigue me with this.
My legit favorite wrestler ever to come through is Bobby Roode,
Oh, okay.
and my second most favorite wrestler is Shark Boy.
Good old Shark Boy.
Stone Cold ripoff.
You know
Was he
who?
the same person as Curryman?
No, Curryman was Christopher Daniels.
And who was Suicide? Because I know that was Christopher Daniels, wasn't it?
I
Or
think
Frankie Kazarian.
I think Suicide was Frankie Kazarian for a little bit,
It's
and then
changed, I believe.
yeah, TJP took over, and then I'm pretty sure they
Okay.
dropped the
And then
gimmick
you've
because of
also,
the connotation.
but anyway, so yeah, what should we go on to next
Well,
about TNA?
we can talk about the rebranding, but I think there's probably something we should talk about like the unsung heroes of TNA, the people who don't get the recognition that they deserve, and more people should know about. Because we can talk about Sting and AJ and like Bobby Roode and Abyss, all these people that people know because they've been to WWE.
Ron
That's awesome.
Killings.
Ron Killings, yep,
Ron
first.
Killings.
First. No, he wasn't the
No, I'm
first, was
saying
he?
he's one of the unsung heroes.
No, I agree.
He did an awful lot.
I was about to say he was the first NWA champion, but he wasn't. That was Ken Shamrock. But yeah, Ron Killings in the early days
It
was
was
huge.
Vince Russo.
I
No, I'm
don't.
being serious. He's an unsung hero of Impact.
Are we
If it
talking?
wasn't for Vince Russo, there wouldn't be no Impact Wrestling.
I mean,
It'd still be called TNA Wrestling now. That's what I'm trying to say.
true, true, true.
Okay, that
I would.
fell really flat on you. You were just like, that's not even funny.
Yeah, I was like, how can you say this? But I got it in the end. For me, it's America's Most Wanted.
LAX.
LAX, yep.
The original LAX, not what they turned it into.
Yeah, Homicide and Hernandez.
America's Most Wanted. That brings me back.
America's Most Wanted, good old James
America's
Storm and
Most
Chris Harris.
You can't, if you have a discussion, so when you discuss TNA, in the moment somebody says to me TNA,
Yeah.
AJ Styles, the words just come straight to my head.
Yep.
You know, I know you're saying unsung heroes, but someone said so. When you TNA to me, I have the old TNA 2007 intro cross my head, where you've got Christian, you've got
Yeah.
AJ Styles, you've got Samoa Joe, and for some reason, I also hear Joe's gonna kill you in my head every time I think of TNA.
Yeah, for me, TNA Wrestling is like 2004 to like 2007, 8, 9-ish, where you did have America's Most Wanted, Triple X, Daniel Styles, Joe, LAX, Team 3D, Christian Angle, like AJ,
You
Bobby
ever
Roode.
watch it? Did you ever watch the? Have you ever managed to watch the original TNA, the NWA paper, the weekly pay per views? Some of those are online,
Yes, so I was
and they had
actually
people dancing in cages and that.
I was actually going to suggest to you, how would you feel about starting a watch along series at some point where we watch those weekly episodes? Because you can pay to watch them on the Impact Wrestling website, and it's like £10 a month.
Honestly, why not? There is something. I don't know if you ever watched it, but I recommend listeners to watch this. Um, um, have you ever seen it where Roddy Piper comes into the ring and goes completely off script and just looks like he's going to kill Vince Russo, and
Oh
he
yeah,
just goes off? And he started talking about how Vince Russo killed his friend Owen Hart and everything.
yep,
It's like, like Dutch Mantel did an interview on that where it was just like nobody knew where that came from. That just happened.
yeah. Say what about Piper? He's
It's
very
something
passionate.
incredible. Yeah, and also talking about that, they even had an amazing. So this is one of the times in wrestling. Have you ever had it where they've had an amazing build up to a feud, with amazing run-ins, amazing promos, and then the actual thing's been dog shit?
I might get a lot of hate for this, but for me, that's the Undertaker and Kane.
Okay. Well, for me, it was good. For me, in terms of that, in WWE, it was the original Goldberg Lesnar feud. But
Dude, yeah, can't argue with that.
They had DDP come to TNA originally at one point to have a
Yes.
thing with Raven, and it looked an amazing build up. Like it went on for a month. It was just like like for 4 weeks, there was a run in, there was weapons, and then the match was shocking, and then DDP disappeared.
Yeah, just around the same time that they had Jarrett, Nash, and
Yeah,
Hall as like the kings of wrestling. They did the weird Elvis skits and all sorts.
I'm just looking at something to do with Dixie Carter's picture on Wikipedia. That can't be an up to date picture of her. She's 60.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it
off
can't.
subject. Apologies.
It definitely can't be.
Um, but do you think I know we're crossing over subjects a lot to do with this, but do you think Dixie Carter was as bad as they say she was?
Um, my theory is she wasn't bad. She was just out of her depth and easily influenced by big names. Because if you were to buy a wrestling company and you don't know anything about wrestling, and you've got Hulk Hogan telling you what you should do, I feel like you'd be like, yeah, 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 that's right. He knows what he's talking about. When in reality, Hulk Hogan
Yeah,
knows
that
what to
sounds
do.
very familiar.
Yeah, whereas Hulk Hogan knows what to do when it comes to Hulk Hogan. I wouldn't trust Hulk Hogan to get an AJ Styles over.
Have you heard some of the most recent stuff Hogan's been coming out with?
I heard him talk about,
Like claiming he was at events when it can be proven he actually wasn't anywhere near the event
yes,
and was actually wrestling somewhere else in the world.
how he gained like 20 days a year flying to and from Japan, which is impossible.
Yeah.
Saying his
Although
working year
you
was
bitch on
stretched
Hogan,
85 times.
all you want, Reese. You can bitch on Hogan all you want, Reese, but if you actually watched his Japan stuff, it looks like you're watching a different wrestler.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
I think we should name this episode not the rebranding of TNA, just everything to do with TNA and loads of random facts.
Yeah, I was just going to call it Let's Talk About TNA, to be honest. So, to
Yeah, let's talk about it. Because you've gone off subject so much. But that's what happens when you don't do the podcast for 2 months.
be honest, I also think that's the best kind of podcast where you can just talk about a bunch of random stuff.
Mm.
Like, if we just talk about one topic, I think it's very hard for us to go off on tangents because sometimes you do need to just talk about the stupid shit.
I wonder something. Do you ever think they'd return to Universal Studios?
I would like to see it. I think that'd be fun, but I don't
Wasn't
know.
it was a 1,500? I think it was 1,500 attendance, where only 500 were actually paying, or something
Yeah,
like that,
something
wasn't
like
it?
that. It kept dropping and dropping and dropping. I know that
Uh,
much.
but it looked actually. The thing is about it, it was quite a good studio setup. If you follow me, the entrance and the everything, it was very well set up, and it was very obvious when they left there because
Yes.
they really were gyms at one point, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, to a
Or up
point,
until recently, maybe they were.
the one I went to was a gym.
They looked like NWA, like mid
Yeah.
2000s NWA.
Yeah, it's a very scary situation. But that does lead us very nicely into this rebranding. So, we mentioned his name earlier, but Eric Bischoff, did you see his comments about TNA rebranding?
No, but I've seen. No, I'm interested in that, but I have seen Jim Cornette's comments on that, so we can intersect on it.
Oh, perfect. So, on Strictly Business, Eric Bischoff was quoted as saying, there's an argument to be made, but I'm not sure I buy it 100% in this case. There's an argument to be made about tapping into nostalgia. I just don't think that TNA brand has enough value ever to bring it back to any kind of form.
Okay, so two things about Eric Bischoff. The guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yep.
That's the first thing. And second of all, I think he's quite bitter about the whole thing in TNA and how it turned out.
Yeah, I think he
Um,
wanted to take
as I
TNA
said at
to.
the beginning, TNA always did better internationally than they did in the United States.
Hmm.
Their highest attended events were actually in the UK, and uh, I remember reading this somewhere. I can't remember where, but at one point they actually had more viewers than WWE did in Europe. That was Germany, the United Kingdom, France, Italy. They actually had more viewers. Might be to do with they were on terrestrial, but it's still he's thinking about the American market. I've said at the start of the program, I think they're thinking about the international market doing this.
No, me too, because when you look at this year alone, in the last, I think it's 4 months, TNA have ran shows in the States, in Canada, which obviously they are two separate countries, but they're both North America. It's not a big deal. They did two sold out shows
Yeah, you
in
can't carry a
Australia.
gun around the street in one of them.
Yeah, imagine that,
Yeah,
right? They did two sold out shows in Australia, and they did four shows in the
yeah.
UK just last week.
Are they
So
going to Germany? Or no, that might have been WWE.
I think it's WWE. I know that they're holding a joint Mexico show in a couple of weeks' time. So like they are expanding
That
internationally again.
just reminds me. That just reminds me. Sorry, didn't Jeff Jarrett? Didn't they do this before when Jeff Jarrett was AAA champion and they had to get police to escort him out of an arena because of his heel work?
Because yeah, they will stab him in Mexico.
Yeah, they will do. Um, well, I mean, I think Bischoff probably holds some internal, deep down guilt for being part of the reason why TNA faltered when it was on an all-time high. I mean, at one point they were pulling in 2 million viewers a week. I think that's their record, 2.2 million.
Yep.
You know, look at them now. I think I was reading the other day that they pull in like 150,000 viewers a week. I think I'm looking at figures from 2021, but that's a big drop in numbers in
Yep.
in 6-7 years, isn't it?
The impression I get is that Bischoff is
Um,
bitter that he couldn't take Impact to 97, 98 WCW. I think
oh,
that's what it is.
I mean, he shouldn't hold that against himself. You're talking about billionaire Ted Turner with flipping AOL TV to yeah.
Yeah.
Although Spike TV did have. I'm sure Spike TV had SmackDown as well at one point.
Yeah,
They
they
were quite a big deal, weren't they?
yeah, Spike TV. I think wasn't SmackDown first on Spike TV, and
Hang
then
on,
it
it's
moved
not even called
to.
Spike TV anymore, is it?
I have no idea.
I think that's Paramount.
Yeah, Paramount.
It is, isn't it? It's the Paramount channel.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's a big channel. I mean, I wonder whether I don't know. I wonder whether they're trying to get a better TV in the States. I wonder who they would get.
I think the problem is that they are owned by a company that owns a TV channel, so I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a tricky situation. But I mean, apparently Paramount is in 80 million homes, it's estimated, so would be a lot of eyes
Yeah,
on the
so I
product.
mean, Spike TV. I mean, God knows how they got that deal in the first place as a startup wrestling company.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to look into how they got onto Spike TV because initially they started off as running pay-per-views weekly.
Yep.
They
And
actually had quite a big fan base with that at the end. It's a good
yeah,
idea if you think about it.
it was, and they weren't exactly
In
expensive
fact,
pay-per-view prices.
no, in fact, I mean, it's very outdated, the pay-per-view market now, but if the quality was good, I'd do a £5 a week pay-per-view for something,
Yeah, 100%.
or what do you call it now? They're not called pay-per-views anymore, are they? They're called
Premium
premium
live
live events.
events. Fucking stupid name.
To be fair, AEW still call them pay-per-views.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
But although
crazy.
I was reading somewhere that someone, I can't remember who it was in the industry, was saying that's going to hurt AEW's market in the long run because yes, they get big bump paydays, but if they want the numbers, they have to do it like WWE do it with the network and everything.
I think if AEW had a network, they'd probably make a lot more money. I would be
They
more
haven't got
inclined
enough
to
history yet, have they?
I'd be more inclined to watch AEW more often if I could watch it on a network, but I don't want to have to watch it week in, week out. I especially don't want to pay like $40 every month to watch one show and then have to try and source to
Too many
watch.
pay-per-views, AEW. Too many
Yeah,
pay-per-views.
way too many. Way too many, especially when they give away
They
matches
are
and stuff.
reasonably priced in the UK, though. They are reason. They're not out. I think they're like 20 quid each in the UK,
Yeah,
which
they're.
you think if you're a massive wrestling fan, you could afford that.
I mean,
But it's still,
how much was WWE pay-per-views back on like NTL when you had to buy it through Skybox Office? Was it like 35, £40?
like 50 quid for WrestleMania in the
Yeah,
UK. £69, I think, was the highest I ever saw it.
yeah. So yeah, it is better, but the problem is there's a lot of money when there's so much wrestling around. So much
Yeah.
wrestling.
Well, this is the point. It's never going to reach the heights it used to, wrestling viewership, and I think maybe some people are a bit fixated on it now. There's two,
Yeah.
like, if you think about it, I don't have the time or the patience to watch a full wrestling match the night it comes out anymore. I watch highlights on YouTube, or if I'm really interested, I'll watch the full match on YouTube. But I like, or I'll hack into somebody's WWE network and I'll watch it there. But I don't have the time to watch it at that point at night. People
Yeah.
don't sit around the TV anymore, do they?
No, I mean the only wrestling I'll watch live is TNA's big events. Yeah, I'll only watch TNA's proper big live events. They are really good. Their weekly show though, it's on YouTube for £10 a month. So I'll just watch that like the next day or whenever I've got like a free moment. I don't feel inclined to have to watch it live.
I've got an idea.
All
I've
right.
got an idea for a competition for our 5 viewers.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it.
Why don't we run a competition where we give 6 months subscription to TNA weekly show on YouTube?
You know what? I would be down with that.
Yeah, it might be a good thing to get people into TNA that might not know much about it. It's just a shame they don't have a full WWE style network library.
So I think they do on the website, but it's a lot more expensive. Whereas on the Impact YouTube show, you can um, they do hold all their weekly episodes forever, basically. And they do show the pay-per-views about a month after they air on Fight TV and stuff. So if you're willing to wait, it's worth it. But for £10 a month, like you can't go wrong. But I'm totally down with that.
To be honest with you, when it comes to, I'm going to give a tip to all of our listeners. If you're really desperate to watch the pay-per-views, wait 24 hours, and there'll be someone from India who would have uploaded them on YouTube. I'm not being, it's not a racist thing. It's always the same. There's 3 or 4 channels that are from India, and they always have like extended 1.5 hour highlights from the pay
Yeah.
per views. I'm sure you've noticed that, Reese.
Yes,
And
have
they're not
very.
taken down either for some reason.
I think it's because copyright laws. If you cut every certain amount of seconds, it is fine.
I remember the old copyright laws where people used to just invert the WWF and it used to work.
Yeah. If you mirrored the logo, it was fine.
And then have you also seen the ones where they lower the pitch of the commentator's voice or something? And it
Yes.
just like
Yes, I have.
yeah, no, but seriously, we talks of the competition. What shall we run the competition for? What should we do it on?
I reckon we do
I
it
come up
on.
with the prize, you come up with the idea.
I reckon you're right. I reckon we do it for Impact's Insider Plus on YouTube.
Okay,
And I reckon you're right. We do it for 6 months.
okay.
And I reckon we run it for a month. So we run it for the month of November. It can be someone's Christmas present.
Yep,
And to
yep.
get involved, you have to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below your favorite wrestler from TNA. Or if you haven't seen TNA, your favorite wrestler ever. But bonus votes if it's
And
a TNA wrestler.
a one sentence on why. Just one sentence, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
We don't want no essays because he hasn't got time to read it and I haven't got time to read it. But we love you.
Because I'm illiterate.
Just out of interest, can I enter the competition?
Sure. I'll just rig the votes.
Why
Anyway, it's
not? No,
fine.
I'm only joking. I'm only joking. To be fair with you, ladies and gentlemen, I do piggyback my co-host's WWE network, and I'll probably be asking him for his login details to the Impact one
To
now.
YouTube. Yeah.
I'm down. Now we're doing the podcasts again. I'm down to doing an episode like this where we just chat random stuff about wrestling,
Yep.
and then a more concentrated episode on the history of TNA. I know we started it with ECW, but I believe the Impact one might get a little bit more following because it's a little bit more up to date and involves wrestlers that
Yep.
people might have heard of, if that makes sense.
No, I agree, and I think considering we do seem to have such a strong Impact follow or fan base on this channel, I think it's worth doing. And there's probably people in the comments that can teach us a thing or two about Impact that we don't know. So
Yeah, I mean, uh, I've just had a random image in my head. Wasn't there a females champion called Sue Young?
yes, Sue Young, she is
Susan?
married to Rich Swan.
Isn't that when they went really operatic at one point, didn't they? They had like ridiculous, like extraordinary promos with her, didn't they? And she had that whole feud with, I think they call her Ali then, but she's
Mm-hmm.
now known as Bunny.
Yep.
Oh, I loved that. She was well pretty. And then they had her like having her throat cut and being pulled into a coffin. God. Yeah, that was when it went a bit weird. I remember having a conversation with you about it at the time. I was like, what's going on here?
To be honest, it's not much different now. So last year when Eric Bischoff
Because
left,
that,
no Eric Bischoff, when last year when Eric Young left Impact to go back to WWE and then never debuted, they murdered Eric Bischoff, no Eric Young, in a promo. They just stabbed him
do
in
you
the
want
back.
Eric Bischoff to get murdered, Reese?
I do,
You've said that twice now.
I do, I do. But no, but yeah, they basically filmed a vignette where Eric Young got murdered by his stable, and they just stabbed him with scissors. And then when he came back a couple of months ago, they filmed the rest of the vignette where he just survives his stabbing and rides off into the sunset on a motorbike. So they still do the weird bollocks sometimes, uh, but it works for them, I
But
guess.
although you have to remember, if it wasn't for Impact Wrestling, you would not have had Delete.
Yep.
I have to say that whole thing was amazing. That whole thing was probably one of the best wrestling personas ever come up with.
I think what
Oh,
really helps Impact stand out as well is they're not afraid to just do something stupid and see what happens. Like
Oh yeah, definitely.
this stuff like stabbing Eric Young and the Ali and Sue Young thing, and the whole like ultimate deletion or whatever it was called. All of
Yeah, it
that
was the
is
ultimate deletion.
yeah, all of that is like the modern day
It
version
wouldn't
of
have happened.
like
It would not have happened. It would not have happened in Vince McMahon's WWE, would it? It
no,
would
not
not
at
have
all.
happened.
But if you look at the Attitude Era, that's no different from the Big Boss Man making Big Show eat his dog, or who? No, was it Al Snow eat his dog or something? It's no different from like the Happy Birthday Rock
No, the
segment.
Big Boss Man one, the one you're thinking of with the Big Boss Man, is the whole slightly cringy one with Paul White at his dad's funeral and driving off, and he's holding onto the coffin. That was a bit much.
There was that one, but then
That
I'm pretty
was
sure Big Boss Man had a feud with Al Snow where he
he
fed
got,
Al Snow his dog.
and they did the whole thing with him dying in the ring with the rope round his neck, didn't
Yeah,
they?
yeah, there you
What
go.
was it with WWE and the Big Boss Man?
Yeah, Big Boss Man feeds Al Snow
Jesus.
Pepper the dog. So they feuded over the fact that Big Boss Man killed Al Snow's dog and then fed it to him. So like this is no different. Or when Kai and Tai cut off Val Venus's erection.
I actually talking about that. I was watching a program about that the other day. They were talking about that, and he comes across really nice actually. And they kept in touch, believe it or not.
Oh really?
Val Venus and one of the guys in Kaitai kept in touch and actually visit each other a couple of times a year.
Val Venus
Unbelievable.
has gone a bit weird now. He's a weed dispensary person and he's like anti. Oh, I can't remember. What is he? Is he anti LGBTQ or something?
Oh, well, I mean, it was always a bit of a weirdo. I mean, I remember when he had the long hair and he kind of got away with that. But when they kind of made him buzz cut, the whole hello ladies with the towel thing, it just didn't look right.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there you go. Val Venus not taking new bookings due to LGBTQ nut jobs, in quotations.
If it wasn't for Val Venus, you wouldn't have had, oh my name was name. Joey Ryan?
Yeah, that's another one. We he who shall not be named. We'll throw him in that
the
list.
the whole thing where you've got to give Ken Shamrock his credit. Yeah, he was game for that when he got wasn't it? He got flipped over by his erect
The
penis,
dick flip. Yep.
body slammed by Joe Ryan's penis. Joe Ryan so blacklisted he can't work in Disney World.
Yeah. Scary time. I say scary
Although
times.
apparently
He
he's
deserves it.
wrestling again. I'm not joking. Look it up. He's been wrestling again.
Oh really?
Yeah.
God damn. They just can't stay away, can they?
No. No, but right, we need to decide when our next episode is and let the viewers know.
Yeah, I mean, I am free basically all next week, so whenever you are.
Well, I attempted to dabble in being a coffee shop manager. That worked as well as any other idea in my life has gone, so I'm free most of next week as well.
You know what's really funny? We've both had shitty coffee job roles.
I've had it, mate. Honestly, I have not learnt my lesson yet. I went and worked in the same baker's twice. That worked. And I also worked for a coffee company that actually owned the coffee company you worked for, if you remember. And that didn't go well either. And I went back to a different one.
Yeah, so basically what we're saying is please watch our
Are
videos.
you going to have to bleep that out?
I'll do some research. I'll do some research. I'll tell you what, guys, if you subscribe to our non existent Patreon, we'll do the unedited episode where you can hear the name of that coffee shop.
That is not a bad idea. How does that work, setting Patreon up?
I don't
Are
know,
we
but
not big enough for that yet, are we?
nah, I'm pretty sure we are. I mean, anyone can set Patreon up. It can't be that difficult. We'll look into it.
Well, yeah, why not?
But yeah, we will be back next week
Right,
then
well, yeah,
with another episode. We might let us know if you want short episodes or if you want longer ones because I figured out my editing issues. So we can do longer episodes if you guys want hour-long episodes, or if you want half an hour episodes, let us know. It doesn't really affect us. It just means we
and
can.
also, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to let us know whether you prefer the episodes where me and Reese just talk about random wrestling and talk about shit, or if you want us to do the episodes more like our episodes 1 to 3, where we're completely structured on the wrestling
Yep.
and just talking about certain events, we don't mind doing either.
Yeah, I'm down with both. If you have any topics you want to hear us discuss, let us know. We will literally talk about anything wrestling. Anything. It might not stay as that
Anything.
topic, but it will start as that topic.
It never stays as that topic.
Yeah, just don't be mad if after like 4 minutes we divert into 1980s All Japan Pro Wrestling Women's trophies or whatever before circling back to K-Vic or something, you know.
I've got an idea for future.
Yep.
We should do a program on those two wrestling events that were run in the early 2000s, the one where Jake the Snake went to and it caused all the problems because he was completely fucked out of his face. You know which ones I mean?
Yeah, where he got his cock out.
Yeah, World of Wrestling or something.
The main event was
Sounds very interesting.
The main event wasn't it something like Jake the Snake and Jimmy Snuka versus Jim Neidhart and Abdullah Butcher or something?
Yokozuna. I'm sure that was one of Yokozuna's last ever. Wasn't that where Yokozuna went to and he almost died in the ring, bless him?
Oh, possibly.
He died not shortly afterwards.
Possibly.
Because he was like 800 pounds.
I think so.
Have you gone?
No, I'm still there. I was just pondering.
Right. Anyway, we should wrap it up for the day because I'm sure people have only listened to the first 2 minutes of this anyway.
Well, if you are still here, then don't forget our giveaway. So all you have to do is like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below who your favorite Impact wrestler is and why. And if you haven't seen Impact before, let us know your favorite ever wrestler and why. We will run this for the whole of November, and we will announce the winner December 1st-ish. We'll announce in an episode, so be around whenever the nearest time to December 1st is. And yeah, if it is an Impact wrestler, then you will get an extra vote. So, you know, do some research or just lie to us, it doesn't matter. And yeah, hopefully we can get some more eyes on the product because I wholeheartedly believe Impact is the best wrestling company doing its thing at the moment.
It's certainly better than NWA.
So is taking a shit, but there you go.
And also, it's now taken over in my head, AEW, because I have now given up with All Elite Wrestling. I really have. Apart from MJF, because I think his promos are hilarious. But apart from that, I've given up with it.
Yeah, I don't even follow the YouTube highlights anymore. I just read what's happening on Twitter.
Yeah, I actually, I'm just going to big up a fellow channel of wrestling channel, Wrestle Talk with Ollie Davis. They do like a panel. And they go over the week and it's hilarious. They're usually shitting on AEW anyway.
Oh, there you go. Well, guys, we hope you've enjoyed the episode.
Right. Anyway, that's it for this week. Yeah.
Please watch because we don't want Liam to go back to another job. So please make us famous. That'd be great. Thank you. If you haven't already, please drop us a like. Helps us amazingly. If you're new and you like listening to our bollocks, please subscribe. Helps us amazingly as well. Don't forget the giveaway, and hopefully we will see you next week for whatever topic we decide 5 minutes before we go live.
Yes, because usually we decide a week in advance and then we change our minds 5 minutes before we go live.
Yeah, basically.
Bit like Vince McMahon.
Yeah, including with the back issues.
Yeah. All right then. See you later, ladies and gentlemen.
Bye, guys.